Okay, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. We always love it when we have these great speakers come in and help us out in whatever way is going to empower us a little bit, make us feel a little bit more in control of things. And it doesn't matter, you know, what your abilities are, there's always something you can do. So this wonderful man here, Jay, he's a City of Calgary police officer, and he's also a martial arts expert at the Fifth Element Studio. So he's here today to give us a few pointers. Give him a big hand.
Can we grab a seat? We have some late coming. That's always good.
That's okay. Come on.
That's all right.
Okay, I'll just.
Yes, I
Come over right through here. You can put it right here.
Nothing wrong with your hearing.
No.
Well, if you can go right here.
That's not what my wife says, actually. It's selective. That's
But you don't tell her that.
no, definitely.
And you can sit right there.
I have to sleep.
Okay. No, I'm listening.
Okay, thank you for the warm welcome, Kim. As my name is Jay, it's pretty easy to remember. The initial is the name, so it should be difficult to remember that. I won't ask all of your names because I'll forget everybody's name within 5 minutes anyway. It's a gift. I can't help that. What we're going to be covering today is a very brief introduction. In an hour, it's very difficult to cover anything that's going to be long-term and stay with you without you willing to put some time and effort into that yourselves. So the first thing we have to do is get that inside. What I'm doing here is giving you the seed. It's up to you guys to water it and help it to grow, okay? If there's any point or any time you don't hear what I'm saying, ask me to speak up. I can amplify pretty well. Is that better? Perfect. Okay. All I'll do is raise the volume because I have several variations of speaking voices from my very nice posh English voice, which is my ethnic origin originally. And then I can go down to a little bit of a street lad and, you know, we're going, so anyway, we'll stay with a nice high volume, that way everybody can hear me okay. The only two things I'm going to ask for today is, one, you all have a photo with me at the end. You all have a photo with me at the end. Okay, every time I teach people, we have a big group photo. It's a personal thing, I can't help that. The second one is, if at any point there's any question, just ask it, okay? You don't need to put your hand up, that was me being stupid. Just ask it, okay? The only question that's silly is the question you don't ask. Because I've found over the years that every time I do a seminar or every time I teach, the one question someone asks, there's usually 3 other people in the room thinking the same question. So at any time, just throw it out there and I'll answer it as best I can. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good. It sounds a little contradictory, but a lot of the stuff, in fact the vast majority of the stuff I'm going to be doing today isn't self-defense. Okay, I don't like the term self-defense because self-defense tends to suggest you're doing something about a situation you found yourself in. It's a little bit like trying to defend yourself from a car running you over. If you're in a situation where the car's running you over, the chances are that you missed a few steps along the way before you got to that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what I use is the term self-protection, okay? When you defend yourself, you are reacting to a situation. Something has happened and you're reacting to it. When you protect yourself, you're taking steps to ensure that you don't have to defend yourself unless it's absolutely unavoidable. This is a little bit like the analogy I always say, you can put an ambulance at the bottom of a cliff to deal with the people that fall off it, or you can have a fence at the top to stop people falling off it in the first place. Does that make sense? So what I try and do is give you the fence. If I can get you to imagine that, well, I don't want to fall off the cliff and use the ambulance in the first place, life's a lot better. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. I'll give you a little bit of my background. Kim's already introduced me. I am a police officer with the City of Calgary. I've been here 6 years now. I was a police officer in the UK before that as well. I think this year is 15 years I've been a police officer now. So, long enough. I've got some stories, we'll put it that way. In martial arts terms, I've been doing martial arts for 25 years. I started when I was, well, I'm 40, so I'm not that young. But I've done various systems: karate, jiu-jitsu, catch wrestling, boxing, freestyle. The names are largely meaningless. They're all basically ways of physically defending and using skills. The primary one I teach at the moment is called Jeet Kune Do. You don't need to worry about the name, but the man who invented it you may have heard of. It's a gentleman called Bruce Lee, the film star. He's the originator of my style, Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee. That's the discipline I teach now. I'm the Canadian director for the Jeet Kune Do Athletic Association. So anyway, that's enough about me. Let's get to why we're here, the meat and potatoes. Who's seen traffic lights? Pretty much everybody, okay? It's not an uncommon thing for us to see. So when you look at the way, hello.
Lillian, come over here. Lillian.
When you look at the way traffic lights work, they work on a colour system, okay? And again, they've kept it nice and simple, because I don't know if you've noticed, Calgary drivers like things nice and simple. They got straight roads, they still end up in ditches. How? Don't know. So what's the first colour? We'll start top to bottom. What's the first colour?
Red.
Red, yeah. It's all right, I'm not giving out prizes and there's no trick questions. It's red. Now what does red signify in terms of that light? Stop. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Then the next colour is, which means
Slow down.
slow down. Yeah. Prepare, be ready. And the bottom one,
Green.
green, which basically means go. If you can always keep a set of coloured traffic lights in your head when you're walking around, things get pretty simple. And I'll explain what that means in a minute. Or should I say I, have taught for years a colour code system. And it was invented by a gentleman called Jeff Cooper, who was a Marine commander out of the United States of America. No relation, because Cooper's my second name, so. But what Jeff Cooper did was he brought a colour coding system which we applied to originally Marines in combat, and then we started to apply it to civilian life. And what it means is it's a way for you to sort of gauge your environment and the situations that you're in. There's 4 states, there's arguably 5, but I'll touch on that in a moment. And we're going to go through them one at a time. Okay? We all with me so far? Yeah? Good.
Yeah.
First code, in the same way that we deal with traffic lights, the first code is what we call code white. Code white is pretty much what code we're all in right now. Okay? Who's right now thinking about any threats, dangers, or things coming in through windows? No. I'd be surprised. You do find it occasionally, but I'd be very surprised. We're all relaxed, we're in a safe environment. Okay? Code white is also called switched off. Okay? Sadly, the vast majority of people walk around in code white. You walk down a high street, you look in stores, you look anywhere people are interacting and doing stuff. Even driving, people are in code white. They're thinking about what they're going to have for their next meal, they're thinking about what they're doing on the weekend, what their boss said at work, the argument they had with their next door neighbor. Any number of things could be going through their mind. But they're not they're not concentrating on where they are at any point in that time. Okay? It's a relatively dangerous state to be in. Because what code white does is it puts you out of the moment, out of where you should be. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Good. The next one, we'll go into these in more detail. Is code yellow. I'm almost ashamed to admit I spent the vast majority of my life in code yellow. Okay? Code yellow is also what we call aware. You're not paranoid. Okay? If you don't hear or don't understand, just ask.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, no, it's cool, it's cool. Code yellow, this relates to being aware of where we are. So if we were in this room, who knows where the fire exits are right now?
Right over there.
Right over there? Good. That represents code yellow for a fire risk. Okay? One of the first things I always do when I come to a new place is look where the fire exit is. Because if it suddenly goes up in flames, I need to know where I'm running to. Okay? So that's why we always do that. That's an illustration and an example. It's not the same as looking. That's ridiculous. No one can go through life like that, and it's very tiring on the knees. What it does mean is, though, you're aware of everything that's a potential threat to you. If we apply this to everything we do in life, we're usually pretty good to go. We really are. Make sense? Good. As I said, we'll expand on these. Third one. Orange. You'll notice they're getting progressively darker. Code orange means we've recognized there's a specific threat. We've recognized the situation, and what we're then going to do is we formulate a plan in our head. I'll stay with the example of the fire exit. We know where the exit is, we're aware of our environment, we're in yellow. All of a sudden, I look over and I see a little plume of smoke coming from behind the chair. I've identified something that's a potential threat and worry. This sounds like a fire safety talk, doesn't it? It really isn't, I promise. I've seen the smoke coming up from behind the chair. So in my head, there could be one of two things I might be thinking. I might be thinking, if that becomes a fire, I'm going to escape. Or I might be thinking, I'll fetch the fire blanket out the kitchen and throw that over the smoke. Either way, I've recognized the threat and I have a plan of action deciding what's going to happen should that turn out to be a fire. Make sense? It could be someone smoking in here and left a cigarette in an ashtray. They probably shouldn't be, but they may be doing that. But you've recognized it. Finally, I'll bring out my special pen. I hope you can all read this. If not, I'll just tell you what it is. Code red. Code red means the threat has gone beyond just being something which might happen, and now it's something that's happening, and we have to do something about it. If the fire suddenly goes up, we can throw the blanket on it, we can extinguish it, or we can go out the exit. That's the analogy. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody, how this works? Any questions about this very brief bit that I've done so far? No? Awesome. We keep these in mind in everything that we do. Okay? It would be very, very foolish of me to expect everybody to be able to walk down the street, a villain comes out from behind a thing, put a kick to the head. So I say, oh, try that. No, of course we're not going to try that now. Okay? That would be ridiculous of me to expect that. So this is why we work on these larger strategies first. Because this enables us to avoid the vast majority of situations we find ourselves in. Make sense? Awesome. So, let's take an example. Who uses an ATM? Yeah. No, not as many as I thought. Okay, so the automated teller machine. We'll go to the machine. How many times, when you go up to that machine, do you check your shoulder before you use it? Who said every time? Yeah? Perfect. You're here. That's code yellow. Okay? So if I'm going into that machine and I'm going to put my card in to get my money out, just a very, very simple precaution, but what it does is it makes sure that the coast is clear and safe for me to engage in my transaction. Okay? But here comes a question. I'm going up to the ATM machine. Okay? I need a volunteer.
Sure, I'll volunteer.
Thank you very much. So you're at your ATM machine. This is our ATM. Okay? So you're at the ATM machine, you do your shoulder check on your transaction, you're going to go in there. Now what are you going to do? Because I'm behind you. I'm right here. Oh, okay, nice. I like that answer. Okay, so she's at the ATM. She says, you tell me what you're going to do. Okay? What would you probably do if you were in this situation? Logically.
Look to see.
And you see me here, so now what?
You look like a friendly soul.
Oh! Lots of implications everywhere. I did hear the answer come out. What was? Someone said something.
She said, ask him to move back.
Very good. She said I look friendly. Ask me to move back. What better answer could you get than that? Okay? So excuse me, would you mind moving back, please?
Would you mind moving back, please?
Oh, certainly. So I then move back. Okay? If I move back 2 inches, a little further. Little further. Little further. Little further. Like that. So you know what? If I don't move, would you like to go first?
Yeah.
Because if I'm like, well, no, I'm just waiting for the machine. Would you like to go first? Oh. And she steps away. Because the problem you have is, any time you're trying to give me a, could you do something, if I'm a nice, reasonable person, and I'm a police officer, I'm not always, but if I'm a nice, reasonable person, and you say, could you move back? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm terribly sorry. That's the first thing I'll do, I will move back. If my intentions are less than honourable, and you say, would you mind moving back? No, I'm okay. That's what we call an orange. Because is it an unreasonable request to ask me to move back? No, I don't think so. I think that's reasonable. Can you sit down for me? I don't want to get too tired. Thank you very much. Round of applause. We'll keep within the scenario. I didn't want you to get tired. I talk a lot. You will notice this. So you've asked me to move back and I won't move. That's your code orange. That's your warning sign. 99 times out of 100, oh, I'm so sorry, they will move. When you get that 1 time out of 100 they don't, that's when that little light goes, ding, and it goes from yellow to orange straight away. So then you could try asking the same thing again. Well, I'm not really comfortable with you being here. You know, I'm trying to use, would you just mind? You might want to do that. They might do it. They may not. The other option, which is the one we discussed, was, okay, well, would you like to go ahead of me then, please? And if they go, no, I'm okay, you say, well, I'm not using it, I'm done, thank you. And then you leave that open to them. Is it inconvenient to you? Yes. It is. It is. But is it safe?
Yes.
Absolutely. This is the difference between crossing in the middle of the road and walking the extra 20 yards to use the crossing.
Yeah.
Sometimes when there's no traffic, okay,
Better
go
be
over it.
safe than sorry.
100% correct. And that's where all this comes down to. The reason I originally said, what would you do? Is because most self-protection is common sense. Okay? If fire's hot and it burns, don't put your hand in it. Most people don't need to be told that. Okay? And common sense. And that's what all self-protection is. So that's just one example of how we can do it. Who always zips up their purse, their bag, their handbag when they go shopping? Yeah? Be honest, who doesn't always zip up their purse or bag? We got one. Thank you for the honesty, Kim. I appreciate that. Another example of just a simple step. It's not always convenient. You rush in, you're putting your keys in, your purse is going around. Oh, you found what you were looking for. And then people just put it back on the shoulder to deal with what they were doing. All it takes is that extra second just to reclose that bag and then deal with what you're doing. Little bits and pieces like that is what we call in the police target hardening. You can never, and this is a trade secret that most martial arts instructors and self-defense people will never tell you. Okay, so listen to this. This is the biggest secret in self-defense. I cannot guarantee 100% your safety. I'm sorry, I can't do it because it's not possible. It's not possible. You can take all the precautions in the world. You think of a president or a king or some royalty. How many of them get assassinated? Quite a few. Not as much as there used to be, but there are still attempts on them. They've got security and guns and bulletproof vests and escorts and barricade, and they're still targets and they still occasionally face threats. We've got no chance, have we? We have. But I can't guarantee it. But what I can do is help you make yourself a more difficult target. Okay? Any questions?
I don't know what you two talking about.
You don't know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
Okay, what part's confusing?
Oh,
the whole thing.
The whole thing? Okay, that's fine.
she has hearing difficulties.
Oh, okay, no problem. Are you missing bits of words, or is the concept difficult?
The words.
The words?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll try and keep it amplified then. Can you hear me okay now?
What was that?
Can you hear me okay if I talk at this volume?
No, she, go ahead, she doesn't.
Okay,
Why
okay.
don't you come in from under the ceiling there?
Is that carrying a little better?
Mine.
A little? Thank you. This is why we ask the questions. I need to know what helps best. So we have our color code system, and this is something we need to apply to everything we do. Round here, recently I've been told there's been a spate of incidences with the shoppers, there was the liquor store, and occasionally there's groups of people hanging around in, no, not always the most desirable set of circumstances. Is that fair? Yeah? Okay. It is still a relatively safe neighborhood. Okay? But I looked at the stats. It's actually relatively safe around here. So if you look at all the occasions where the shoppers does get targeted by criminals, you then look at how many times it doesn't. And percentage, it's still very low. Now that isn't to say it's not scary when it happens. It is. The street I live on is brand new. It's less than a year old. It's in the northwest. And there was a burglary there 3 days ago. And I was like, I was offended that someone chose to do a burglary in my neighborhood. Don't they know who I am? Clearly not. So you do get that sense when you hear these stories or you even see them, that like, oh my goodness, it's not safe here, it's getting dangerous. The reality is, there's actually less crime in Calgary now than there was this time last year. That isn't me as a policeman flying my policeman's flag. It's actually the way it goes. When we get to zero crime, I'll retire, happily. We won't, which is sad, but we won't get there. So, when you consider the potential is very low, it's too easy sometimes to end up in this code white. And that's when it becomes a shock to us and something happens and we go like this. That's because we were in that code white state. If I was to suddenly creep up behind somebody and yell boo very loudly, that wouldn't be a surprise, because I'd be saying, I'm going to come behind you and go boo. Boo! And it's like, well, you told me you were going to do that, you idiot. So of course there's not going to be the stun or the scare. But if I was to sneak in the room half an hour after I'm supposed to have left, come up behind you and then shout boo, the reaction will probably be very different, because it's that surprise, that startle reflex, that boo, ah! And you're a rabbit in the headlights. That's the final code, and it's the one we want to avoid. And it's code black. I keep it separate because I hope we never go here. Code black is that situation where all of a sudden you're startled. You didn't see it coming, you forget everything that you're doing, and you just panic. Who's been there? Yeah. I've been there. I've been there. I actually had it the other day when I wasn't paying attention, and my 2-year-old went and grabbed the iPad from the side, and he just tilted it, and it was just going to be falling down like so. And I was not paying attention. I should have been, careful father, and I looked around and went, because all I could see was this thing falling and falling and falling. Luckily my mother-in-law was there, and she's 82. She just went, always trust experience. But that's just a very, very simple example of how we can go to code black very quickly. Okay? We want to avoid it. And we can avoid code black by staying in code yellow. When we're in code white, if we then go to any of these stages down the bottom, that's when we panic, because it's like, something's happening! And you have to formulate that decision process like that. And it's very hard to do. Okay? Questions so far? Anybody confused? I don't mind. I really don't. Good. As long as you sit the code. So, I'm walking down. In fact, let's have a volunteer. Let's have another volunteer. Kim, can I borrow you? Stand there for me, please. So we've got Kim here. She's walking down the street. Okay? She could be at a C train platform. She could be waiting for a bus. She could just be going to get the Calgary Sun. Because I don't read the Herald, don't like it. Calgary Sun. So if you're walking down the street in your situation as you are, and you see a less desirable individual with a hood up, what's your mind telling you?
Cross the street.
I like that answer. I like that answer. Cross the street. How many of us would do that? Yeah? I'm liking what I'm hearing, guys. That's code yellow to code orange. You spot a threat, you perceive the threat, and you have a plan in your head. Now in this case, what Kim did, I'll pull this for the camera. She saw the threat, recognized it as such, and immediately went to a plan. That's awesome. That's awesome. If you are able to take action that quickly, life is good. Say she can't. She can't cross the street, the traffic is going like this, and I'm still the threat stood here. Give me another option.
Turn around and go the other way.
Oh, I'm digging this too. You see how so much of this is simple common sense? And it's a bit like people, well, why are we bringing you in to tell us this? Well, you shouldn't really. The best I can do is bring out what you already know. So that's Kim's other option. She turns around to go the other way. Perfect. What does she need to be aware of as she does that?
In case the kid runs up behind her.
Boom! Because what am I? I'm still a threat. Still a threat. I haven't gone away. Now if Kim backs off and keeps going, and keeps going, and keeps going, and keeps going, If she gets right the way back out into the corridor, has my threat status reduced? Yes, it has. I'm still potentially a problem. It must be the English accent. But I am still a problem. But the threat level's been reduced. If I start to do this, what's happened? Threat level increase. Okay? I've probably gone from here to red. I'm probably a little bit beyond just something that might be a problem later on. I'm not smoking anymore. I'm on fire. Make sense? So Kim's then got options. Okay? She can bolt. She can maybe take that step into the traffic, although I don't personally recommend doing that. It's not known for being the safest thing to do. Or what's another option?
Call for somebody.
Oh. Scream. I like that. Call for somebody. Who carries a whistle? No, who carries one?
Oh,
I have one on my keychain.
Do you have it with you right now?
No, it's downstairs.
That's called white! What was there a reason why you stopped carrying a whistle?
Well, I was going to be what I thought was a safer place.
You
I
live
was
in a
on my
senior's
own when I
home,
had my
there's not much need for a whistle.
Not in the home, that's very true, so you're forgiven that.
Yeah.
You're in the home, you're safe, we're amongst
I
friends.
still have my whistle.
Good. As a suggestion, carry it again. Only when you're outside. If I'm in my house and I'm going to the kitchen, believe it or not, I don't tend to carry my gun. My wife can get pretty angry, but I haven't needed my gun in the home yet. But it's the same with something as simple as a whistle. A simple little thing like that can draw a lot of attention to yourself. If someone is a threat to you, believe it or not, they do not want an opponent. Okay? When I was 20, 25, the situations I would face as threats are very different than the ones you would face. I don't know of many situations where somebody would start a fight with any of you because you happen to look at them in a nightclub. I used to get that a lot. If I was accidentally and caught someone's eye, what are you looking at?
If someone were very tipsy, would they
Oh yeah,
react to?
very much so.
Yeah.
They catch my eye, and it's what we call an ego fight. They want to prove they're the biggest rooster in the hen house. They puff that chest up. I doubt many of you have had ego fights in the past few months. Although I hear cribbage is very popular, and when people cheat in cribbage, it happens. It happens. Hello. Do you want to come in?
Very good.
Okay. No problem.
Okay.
So the situations you will be facing aren't going to be ego fights. They're going to be what we tend to call predator situations, which means somebody's looking for an easy target. Okay? Who's got a purse or a wallet with them, a handbag, just something with them right now? Oh, what a volunteer. Round of applause, please. Bring it up for me. Is it zipped?
I got my winnings from last night.
Oh, there we go. That's my dinner taken care of tonight. There we go. So carry your bag as you would normally carry it. Okay, perfect. Let's just check those zips. We're zipped. We're zipped. 10 out of 10 for that one. Okay? So this is how the bag is carried. Now, I like this. It's on the side. Because I see this sometimes as well. If I can just borrow you a second. I see this a lot. Okay, just give a little twirl for me. There we go. You see how it sits on the back? And it's very easy. Feel a little pull? That's what happens because as a predator, this is now my target. Back. Snatch. The way you had it, I like this. Because now I have to go under to get, this is not an easy hit. Because if I'm coming here now, chances are you'll be feeling this. Make sense? I can't guarantee, and I'm sorry, that you're not going to get someone trying to steal your bag. But it does represent a harder target now. Thank you. So that's another example of being aware. If I'm making that move towards you to get the bag, to get the wallet, to do whatever, and you have that whistle, how much attention are you drawing to yourself? Quite a bit. Even the most absent-minded, dilly thinking of other stuff people, if they're hearing this whistle going sharp and loud and sharp and loud, what are you going to do?
Look and see what's going on.
I'm going to get one.
You're going to get your whistle? Thank you. You will. That whistle will draw a lot of attention. A lot of attention. And what's the one thing a criminal doesn't want?
Attention.
Yeah, exactly. Because if they get attention, they get identified. They get identified, they get caught. And we tend to take in the police force, certainly from a personal perspective, a very dim view of crimes against the more experienced members of our community. We don't really like that very much. Does that make sense? Now, if you look at the actions and the steps that you've just in that one instance taken, how much simpler is that than maybe... Yeah? And this is again one of those great myths of self-defense. I could come in and teach you techniques for an hour, but you might not remember them, you might not even be able to do some of them. But if we can make it that you don't need to engage in that, we're already ahead of the curve. Make sense? Any questions so far?
Should we all carry whistles?
That's my next question. Who's going to go buy a whistle now? Awesome. One of the reasons I like whistles, a lot of people used to carry in the UK those alarms that you press the button on.
Oh, yeah.
They make those noises, which is cool.
My dad always called from the time I was 10 years old, a whistle. And when that whistle blew, all four of us were at the door.
Anybody want to hear it?
Give it a blast for me, Kim.
This is just a really little whistle, but it's a good one.
So where'd you get that?
This is actually from the Survivor store. I have a cousin who's a survivalist. He bought one for all of us.
Can I borrow it a second?
Pardon?
Can I borrow it just a
Oh,
second?
sure.
Okay. Very, very simple to carry. Okay? If you take that, there's a lot of keys there, Kim. I'm not going to
That's
lie.
why I don't wear it. I'm like
You
the
could beat
janitor.
somebody unconscious with your keys.
I'm like the janitor.
I like it. But if you just, that's a little plastic whistle. Kim just gave that little on it, and it's quite piercing. Now if you went, people are going to be hearing that.
Yeah,
People would stop and look.
Yeah, they would, because the electric ones have two disadvantages. One, they're electric, and you could carry that for like 12, 18 months and not use it. And the one day you need it, you pull it out of the bag or the wallet or the pocket, you press that button, and guess what happens? Your battery's flat. Last time I checked, Whistles don't need batteries. You can just let that pip and let that whistle and let that sound, and away it goes.
What would happen if you just holler and help?
That can work. That can work. There was a study in New York, and what they found was people that called help, for whatever reason, it didn't always get people's attention. Because they were like, people could be help, I've dropped something, help, oh, it's not my problem, I don't want to help, I'm too busy.
I want to get involved.
Exactly. So do you know what word they found worked?
Fire.
Oh, who said that? I like that. Was that what you? Fire. They yelled fire as loudly as they could. Because even if you don't want to get involved in putting it out, what are you thinking in your head?
Where is it?
Yeah, is that a danger to me? Whoa, like so. And they found, for whatever reason, and it's sad in a way that you have to work around the human condition, but they found that yelling fire actually got better results. I'll be honest, if I hear someone yelling help, I'll look. I will look to do that. And this neighborhood itself is actually quite nice, and I think at least 70% of the people around would look. Would look. Okay? Excuse me. One of the other problems you sometimes find with shouting is, though, there's a tendency your throat might get dry, or do you know what I mean? And
You couldn't get anything out.
exactly. And some people, who's got the quietest voice in the room?
Not me.
No, I like, yeah, you got a boomer more. I like that. A boomer. I like boomers. Okay. If I is anybody above or below that's going to wonder what's going on if I shout quite loudly? Good. So if I yell, "How!" with a good bit of volume, I've got quite a bit of air in my lungs. Okay. We used to call that my riot control voice. So if I yell that out, most people will hear that.
Yeah, stop and look.
If you're already panicking a little bit, your voice might not go. Exactly. So it's not that it doesn't work, it does. And if you haven't got your whistle with you, and all you've got is your voice, get it out, okay? Because it's better than nothing. But a whistle doesn't necessarily need you to not be panicking. You can just get that and just blow. If you're panicking, you stick the whistle and you blow it. And you're going on. And you're getting that attention. And that's the key. Attention is the key. Because again, you want to stop them looking at you as a target. Target hardening. Who locks their door? I hope so. That's target hardening. Locking your door at all times, that's target hardening. You don't want somebody to come in your room and go through your belongings and burglarize your house. Even in a safe environment like this, I would assume everybody locks their door. Yeah? How likely is someone to come in and go in your house?
Very likely.
Yeah?
Well, a place like this would be easy to come into.
It could be. Potentially it is.
And it's usually
When we're
quiet.
talking about whistles, that seemed to me to be a bit small. Is a larger whistle better?
The whistle as loud as you can and as big as you can carry. Loud is always better, because we're not carrying this whistle for any reason other than to make a noise that's going to make the heavens themselves look down and go, what's going on?
Well, I have a hearing problem, even though I have hearing aids, and I hardly heard it.
In fairness to Kim gave it a little, do you want to give it a, if anyone's worried, cover your ears.
Okay, because I wasn't giving it my all.
No, I know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Ear piercing.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Did you just pick that one up?
I can hear it because she's right behind me.
You okay?
But
And then it could even do more than that.
yeah, if you give it some more, that was maybe 50%.
Yeah.
Maybe 50%.
Yeah.
So the more you put into a whistle, the more you get out. It's a bit like a bank account in that respect. Mine's always empty. But it is a good question. If you're going for a whistle, treat it like a car. Test drive it. Oh yeah, I like that one. That's good. Ooh, we'll go with that. Those little referee whistles, I like the best. You know, they got like a little,
Yeah.
Like a little ball on the end.
yeah, the P whistles.
Yeah.
Look a little like that.
Right.
They're fantastic because they got that little rattle going on as well, and that really gets going when you put some volume. There's a reason these are loud, because if you've got like 20 or so guys in pads and helmets, you want them to stop quick. So that's why they really carry. So those whistles, always a good call, always a good idea. If you are interested in doing that, Kim, we'll talk about it at the end. I'll see if I can get some supplies lined up for you guys, and I'll see if I can get them to you. Okay?
That certain whistle, what is it called?
It's just a P whistle or a referee whistle.
Or a referee
Yeah.
whistle?
It depends on how the person making the whistle chooses to label it, but that's basically what it is.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great idea. Then we could get some, and if someone wanted one, yeah.
Leave that with me. I'll get onto that, and I'll let you know within the next day or so what I found out, and we'll ensure that everybody here at least gets a souvenir whistle. Make sense so far?
Yes.
Good, good. So, if we take any given situation that we're in, whether that's walking down the street, whether that's in the store, at the bus stop, any potential situation we're in, we can avoid a lot of it just by staying aware and having what?
A whistle.
A whistle's the a plan. Always have a plan of what you're going to do. It doesn't have to be you at home writing this down for half an hour. Okay, right. That's my plan for the day. Good to go. You can't do that because you never know what's going to happen. Okay? You get your shorts on, your shades, your sun hat, you step outside, and we're in Calgary and you've got 3 foot of snow overnight. What's happened to your plan? It's ruined! So you reevaluate, you go back in, the long johns come on, the coat comes on, you put the woolly hat on, yeah, okay, we're good to go. You step outside, shut up, it's all gone. We reevaluate again, okay, all right, you know, I'm not getting changed, just taking my coat off, all right, we're good. This is the way everything works. This is not a fixed state. It's always moving, like traffic lights.
Changing.
That's why I used it. It's an organic process. It's alive. As long as I always stay here, I will pick up threats. I will register that as a potential threat. If it starts to do something, I recognize it as, okay, this is, okay, and my plan starts to formulate. If it then does what I think it's going to do, I action my plan, whether that's blow my whistle, cross the street, walk away, ask them to go back. If they don't do what I think they're going to do, and it turns out they're just very cold and shivering, and that's why they've got their hood up, I go back to here. And I'm still aware, and I'm still aware. And then I see something else, and I come back to here, and I come back to here, and then I'm back, and then does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're constantly reevaluating what we do. This sounds so simple, and it is. And if you can actually keep this at the forefront of how you do your day-to-day business, this will stop 90% of potential problems that you will be facing. Yeah? Any questions? Good. Kristen.
I have one.
Go.
A situation which we might be in, and we ride the sea train.
Okay.
You're suddenly near the end of the line, and you're with someone who has the hood up. You're all by yourself. What do you do?
What do you do? Good question. Did everybody hear the question?
No.
Well, no.
Okay. You're on the sea train. You're coming to the end of the line. We're in motion, correct? Okay. So we're coming to the end of that line. You're in motion. You're in a cabin on your own, and you see there's someone in there, sat there, with the hood up. What do we do in that situation, was the question. That fair summary? Okay. For starters, I like where you are because you're straight into orange. The carriage is emptied, there's a guy over there in his hoodie. I'm not liking this. Okay? Now, one thing we could do, if we're here, if we're on the C train and the entire carriage is starting to empty apart from one person down the end, what's one option?
Talk to the driver.
Push the help button.
Yeah, that's one option. If we're static, I won't even draw it because my artistic skills aren't that good. If we're static at the platform before the last and everybody gets off except you and this one person, I did hear someone say, go with the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an option.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and I do the same, I'm like, oh, not my stop. And then by the time you've realised that everybody's left, then you're in this situation. I will come back to it, I haven't forgotten. So if you look up and you see everybody going off apart from this one person, one option is go with the crowd and wait for the next train. Because that removes you from the immediate threat. Another option may be get off the one carriage, go to the one behind, or the one in front. You change your environment. There's a potential risk there because you might then walk into a carriage with 4 people in hoodies. So always look in the windows before you do that one. That makes sense? Now, that's ideal world, everything's gone well. But, as I always say, even a monkey will sometimes fall out of a tree. So, we're in a carriage, the person's there with that hoodie. If they are sat there, looking sullen, not saying much, with a miserable expression on their face, they're a teenager, and they always look like that. The important thing to bear in mind is not everything that seems that it's going to be a threat then becomes that threat. Okay? I'll do a slight deviation. One of the hardest things we have as police officers, as trainers, is teaching new recruits that just because somebody might be a threat doesn't mean you shoot them. I exaggerate for comic effect. But there's a tendency that if you've not had that experience, and this is, Calgary police training is second to none, and I've been through 4 agencies training courses. Calgary's is very, very good. You have to get them used to recognizing the difference between a potential threat and an actual threat. Okay? A dog is a potential threat. It is, a dog. A dog curled up in a, looking at you like so, or if it's my dog, it's still a potential threat. In my case, it's going to put drool on my floor, and I might slip in it later. But it's still a potential threat. Now, a dog with its fur up and its teeth showing is now an actual threat. The dog hasn't changed. The consequences to its behaviour have. You're in there, keep an eye on them, is the first thing, because we need to stay here now. This is going to be a very, very tense 5 minutes until we get to this next platform, believe me. We're in there, we're on our own. Okay. No. So we're keeping this threat monitored. We have to do that. We have to do that. If they start to look over at us, the needle, because if we imagine this as a pressure gauge, they're looking at me. The needle's going, the needle's going. They look away. Coming back a little bit. They start to get out of their seat. This is now becoming a threat. Now, that doesn't mean you shoot them. What it means is you now have to consider what your options are going to be next. And this is again coming back to that first thing I touched on. We're looking for where the fire escape is. I think yourself mentioned it. What's an option?
Pull the alarm.
pull the alarm button. It's there for a reason. It's there for a reason, okay? Because if this sea train is moving and someone gets up and starts moving in it, where are they going? I don't know. There's no bathrooms. And they can't say, oh, that was my stop. They can't suddenly leap off the sea train. So there's clearly a threat going on there. If you pull it, it goes off, and the alarm's ringing, and people come running through, what's going on? And he says, I dropped my wallet, and I was going to pick it up. Are you going to get in trouble? No! You reacted perfectly reasonably in the circumstances, okay? And if he hadn't dropped his wallet and was thinking of doing something, now he knows that's a difficult target, because now everybody knows I'm in the cabin with this person, they pulled the alarm. You've negated that being an actual threat later. And everybody now knows you're there, so they might just bring you into another carriage. Does that make sense? So that's one option you've got. In fact, it's a good option. You know? The help button's there for a reason. Use it. It's like 911. Okay? You think someone's breaking into your house, you don't wait to see if they actually come through the window and get your TV. You call 911.
And I was just going to mention too, because I have a friend that's a sea train driver, when you pull that alarm, it's not like they slam on the brakes of the train. They right away say, what is the nature of your emergency?
Yes.
So then you can yell at them right away, and if it's a serious emergency, then
they'll come through.
Yeah.
And what have we done to ourselves as a target? What do criminals not want? What are they now getting? Lot of attention. Lot of attention. That's the key. Because the only thing a criminal hates worse than attention is getting caught. And the one leads to the other. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that answer the question? Perfect.
I just wanted to bring it up.
No, and you know what?
happened.
I love it when people bring those, because that, I'll guarantee you, there's at least 30 people that are on a sea train right now, in a carriage, going towards a stop, and 28 of them are going to get off. That's a very, very likely, very real situation. Make sense? Good. Liked it. Any other scenarios or thoughts?
Well, if you're the only one left on the sea train, there's no threat there.
No. So in theory, we might go to here. We don't. We stay here. But if you're the only one on it, there's no need to then go from here. My yellow here might be, is it on fire? Am I going to miss my stop? Am I, all these things. The door's open, someone comes on. I'm aware. I'm hovering here. I keep I'm constantly reevaluating.
What about walking down the street and you approach a group of people that are just sort of
Hanging?
you know, they're focusing on you?
Gotcha. Very similar to what we did with Kim earlier. Okay? You're walking towards a group or you're approaching a group. Let's imagine we've got this group of likely candidates here. Okay? Villains and rapscallions, every one of them. If I'm approaching a group this nefarious, what's the safest thing I can do?
Just back away.
Stop approaching the group. Which is, and again, this is how we do it. The more evasive action we take, the less chance of us becoming that victim of the situation. If you're walking towards a group, does everybody know the superhero Spider-Man? His spider senses that warn him of when danger. That's all this is. This is spider senses we're working on here. I see a group and I'm feeling that danger. I act on my senses. Human beings are a tremendous organism. We have these wonderful capabilities in our body. When something feels wrong, that's your body giving you a clue. You might not be able to say exactly what it is, but your body's telling you something's wrong. What that is happening is your mind is trying to find something to reference. I've been here before, I know something's going on. What is it? Oh. You know when someone asks you the name of your favourite TV show and the actor in it, and you're going, it's something like that, I wasn't, and you can't quite get it? It's in there somewhere, and when they say it, you go, that's it! Well, this is a physical equivalent. You recognise this threat, and you're going, something's going wrong here, it's not quite right, I'm coming over there, they're going to mug me, that's it. We don't want to get to that point.
Well, what did you say when you said if you're walking on the street and there's a group there, well, maybe they're not going to bother you at all.
Maybe they're not. Maybe they're not.
Well, what should you do?
You minimize their chance to do that.